Tay finally turned from the window. Supreme Leader Park had ruled the Kumiho Alliance for over 500 years. His life extended through the same biomechanical technology that powered their warships. Park's vision of galactic domination had driven their civilization forward, turning them from a single-planet species into the most feared empire the galaxy had ever known. "Show me the latest conquest map," Tay ordered. Kim pressed a button on his tablet, and a holographic display appeared between them. Thousands of points of light glowed blue, representing conquered systems. The map rotated slowly, showing their empire spanning nearly the entire galaxy. "There's something strange here," Tay said, pointing to a small section near the outer edge of one spiral arm. "This area shows as incomplete. Explain." Kim zoomed in on the area. "This is Sector 7, sir, a relatively unimportant region, but there is one system that has not yet been brought under our control." He tapped the display, and a single yellow star appeared with several planets orbiting it. "Why has this system been overlooked?" Tay demanded. "It wasn't overlooked, sir," Kim said carefully. "Initial scans showed primitive technology, and our resource allocation algorithm designated it as low priority. The inhabitants have barely ventured beyond their own moon." Tay's eyes narrowed. "No system is too small to join our empire. What do we know about this place?" Kim swiped through several screens on his tablet. "It's called the Sol system. The inhabited planet is the third, one from the star, a blue world called Earth. Population approximately 8 billion. Their technology is thousands of years behind ours. They've only recently discovered basic space travel." 8 billion? Tay raised an eyebrow. "That's a significant workforce. What resources does this Earth have?" "Abundant water, diverse biological life and substantial mineral deposits," Kim replied. "Also, the humans, that's what they call themselves, seem highly adaptable. They might be valuable workers in our mines on the outer systems." Tay took the tablet and studied the information. Earth looked unimpressive compared to the advanced civilizations they had conquered. The humans had primitive aircraft, basic digital systems, and weapons that would be useless against Kumiho technology. Their cities were unprotected, their militaries fragmented into separate nation-states. "Look at them," Tay said, showing Kim an image of a human city. "They still burn fossil fuels. They fight wars against each other. They have no unified planetary defense." Commander Kim nodded. "They would fall quickly, sir." Tay swiped through more images, humans going about their daily lives, unaware that aliens had been watching them, cataloging their weaknesses. "Their planet is remarkably rich in biodiversity," Kim added. "Over 8 million different species. Our scientists would value such genetic material." Tay handed the tablet back, his decision made. "Prepare an invasion fleet. Standard procedure. Send scout ships first, then deliver our ultimatum. I expect they'll surrender immediately like all the others." Kim looked surprised. "Sir, is this small planet worth our resources right now? There are larger systems that—" "Every planet will join the Alliance," Tay cut him off. "Supreme Leader Park's vision is total galactic dominance, no exceptions." Kim bowed slightly. "Yes, Admiral, how many ships shall I assign?" "A minimal force," Tay said, walking back to the window. "One command ship, 2 destroyer-class vessels, and the standard complement of ground troops. These humans will barely require our attention." In the ship's preparation bay, soldiers in biomechanical armor were already boarding transport vessels. Their bodies were enhanced with Kumiho technology, neural links connecting them directly to their weapons and ships, artificial muscles giving them strength far beyond any natural being. Officer Jun approached Tay with the final invasion plans. "We've studied their communication systems, sir. Our translators can now process all Earth languages. We'll be able to deliver the ultimatum in ways they'll understand." Tay barely glanced at the plans before approving them. "How many worlds have resisted us, Jun?" Jun thought for a moment. "In the beginning, many tried, but none in the last 300 years, sir. They've all seen what happened to those who fought back." Tay smiled coldly. "Exactly. These humans will make the same calculation. They'll see our power and submit." As the invasion fleet prepared for departure, Tay watched from his command chair. On his personal screen, he studied Earth once more. It's blue oceans, green and brown landmasses, swirling white clouds. Such a simple planet, yet rich in what the Alliance needed. The conquest will be swift, he said quietly to himself, like all the others before it. Captain Sun stood at the command center of the lead Kumiho scout vessel as it pierced through Earth's atmosphere. The ship's outer hull glowed red-hot from entry, but inside the crew felt nothing. Their technology had mastered the challenges of planetary entry centuries ago. "Status report," Sun demanded, her voice calm despite the importance of their mission. "Stealth. Systems functioning at optimal levels," reported Navigator Day. "Earth's primitive radar systems cannot detect us. We are completely invisible to them." Sun nodded with satisfaction. "Bring us to observation altitude. Position our vessels over their major population centers as planned." The sleek, dark ships spread out across the globe, hovering silently above cities like New York, Beijing, Moscow, and Delhi. From this height, the Kumiho could observe human activity in detail without being seen. "Begin broad-spectrum monitoring," Sun ordered. "I want to know how their planetary government communicates. Find their leadership structure." The crew began scanning all electronic signals coming from the planet below. Within minutes, the ship's data systems were overwhelmed. "Captain," called out Communications Officer Gill. "There's something unusual happening with the signal patterns." Sun walked over to Gill's station. "Explain." "We're picking up transmissions in hundreds of different languages, thousands of distinct communication networks. They don't appear to have a unified communication system at all." Sun frowned. This was unexpected. "Where is their planetary defense headquarters? Their unified command?" "That's just it, Captain. There isn't one," Gill replied, looking confused. "These humans appear to be divided into over 200 separate territorial entities, each with their own governments, militaries, and communication systems." Sun stared at the data in disbelief. Every other civilization the Kumiho had encountered had evolved toward unity. A single planetary government, a unified defense system. It made logical sense for species survival. But these humans seemed to defy that pattern. She pressed a button on her wrist communicator. "General June, we have an unusual situation. Request your presence in the command center." General June arrived shortly, his tall figure commanding respect as he entered. Sun quickly explained what they had discovered. "Interesting," June said, studying the global map showing the different nations. "So many borders, so many separate militaries. This is inefficient." "What does this mean for our invasion plan?" Sun asked. June thought for a moment. "We should proceed with the standard protocol, announce our presence, deliver the ultimatum, and give them the customary 12 hours to surrender." "But who do we deliver the ultimatum to?" Sun asked. "There's no single leader. Broadcast it globally," June decided. "Let them sort out their response among themselves." "How many systems does this make now?" Tay asked, still staring at the stars. "Over 12,000 star systems, sir," Kim replied. "Supreme Leader Park will be pleased with your efficiency." The order was given, and the Kumiho ships positioned themselves to be visible. They deactivated their stealth technology, allowing their massive black vessels to be seen hovering over major cities worldwide. "Transmission ready," Gill announced. "Send the standard ultimatum," June commanded. All languages simultaneously. On Earth below, panic erupted as the ships appeared. Traffic stopped. People poured into streets pointing skyward. Military bases went on high alert. Television broadcasts were interrupted worldwide as the Kumiho message played on every screen and speaker. "People of Earth, we are the Kumiho Alliance. Your planet has been chosen to join our galactic empire. Resistance is pointless and will result in your destruction. You have 12 hours to surrender all governmental authority to us. Those who cooperate will be allowed to live as productive members of our workforce. Those who resist will be eliminated." The message repeated in language after language, reaching every corner of the globe. In the command center, Sun and June expected what always happened next, a response from planetary leadership, usually beginning negotiations for surrender terms. Instead, the communications system exploded with incoming signals. "What's happening?" June demanded. Gill looked overwhelmed. They're all responding. Thousands of separate transmissions. Military commands, government leaders, ordinary citizens, everyone is broadcasting at once. On the main screen, they watched as a chaotic mix of responses came in. Some human leaders called for immediate attack on the alien vessels. Others proposed peace. Religious figures proclaimed the end times. Civilians broadcast everything from prayers to insults to surrender pleas. "This is madness," Sun said. "How do they function with such chaos?" General June studied the patterns emerging from the data. "They're divided and fractured," he reported, connecting to Admiral Tay on the command ship. "Their leadership structure is scattered across hundreds of competing entities. This should make them easier to conquer." But as they continued monitoring, Scout Han noticed something unexpected. "Sir," Han called out, "I'm tracking their military responses. Something unusual is happening." June walked over to Han's station. "Explain." "These separate nations, they appear to be coordinating their responses. Look here." Han pointed to radar data showing military aircraft from different countries forming joint patrol patterns. "And here," he continued, indicating missile defense, "systems activating in coordinated sequences across national boundaries. That's impossible," Sun said. "If they have no unified command, how can they coordinate?" Han shook his head in confusion. "I don't know, but they're doing it. Their primitive weapons are being aimed skyward in a coordinated defense pattern we've never seen before from a non-unified species." Outside, the first human fighter jets approached the Kumiho vessels, primitive aircraft, burning chemical fuels, carrying basic projectile weapons, completely ineffective against Kumiho shields. Yet they came in waves from different nations, somehow coordinating their attack angles. "Should we eliminate them?" Sun asked. June watched the approaching aircraft. With curious respect, "Not yet. Let's observe this behavior. It's unusual." In the 12 hours that followed, instead of preparing surrender terms as expected, the humans demonstrated an unprecedented phenomenon. Nations that had been enemies for generations suddenly established communication. Military forces began sharing information. Scientists worldwide started collaborating on analysis of the alien vessels. "Sir," Han reported with growing concern, "they're uniting rapidly against us. This doesn't match any first contact pattern in our records." June's face darkened as he contacted Admiral Tay again. "Admiral, we may need to reconsider our approach. These humans are different." Colonel Nam stood at the edge of the landing zone, watching as the Kumiho dropships touched down on Earth soil for the first time. The location had been carefully chosen, a flat area just outside Seoul where their forces could establish a foothold before moving into the city itself. Behind him, 500 of the Alliance's elite soldiers prepared their weapons, their biomechanical armor gleaming in the morning sun. "Remember your training," Nam told his squad leaders. "These humans are primitive. Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Expect token resistance at first, followed by surrender within hours." "Lieutenant." Du approached with the final scan results. "Sir, our sensors show approximately 2,000 human defenders in the immediate area, mostly conventional military forces, with basic projectile weapons and some primitive explosive devices." Nam almost laughed. 2,000 against our 500, and with their technology, this will be over quickly." The Kumiho soldiers moved out in perfect formation, their steps synchronized by the neural links that connected them. Each soldier was a perfect weapon, enhanced strength, built-in shields and weapons that operated as extensions of their bodies. They had conquered worlds with far more advanced defenses than anything Earth could offer. As they approached the first line of human defenses, Nam gave the standard order. "Non-lethal force first. We want workers, not corpses." The front line of Kumiho troops raised their neural disruptors, weapons designed to overwhelm primitive nervous systems and render opposition unconscious without killing. They had used this approach on 100 worlds, always with the same result: quick incapacitation followed by surrender. The weapons fired, sending invisible waves of energy toward the human defenders. Nothing happened. The humans continued their defensive preparations seemingly unaffected. "Impossible," Nam muttered. "Increase disruptor power to maximum." Again, the weapons fired. Again, no effect. Before Nam could issue new orders, The human forces opened fire. Simple bullets and shells, ancient technology that should have been useless against Kumiho shields. Yet somehow, the humans had positioned their fire in a pattern that found weaknesses in the shield harmonics. 3 Kumiho soldiers fell. How? Nam demanded. How can they know the shield frequencies? They've never encountered our technology before. The battle quickly deteriorated from there. Instead of meeting the Kumiho in direct combat as expected, the human forces broke into small groups, attacking from multiple directions before disappearing into pre-prepared tunnels and hiding places. They're using guerrilla tactics, Du reported, sounding confused. But our battle algorithms should predict their movements. Nam watched in growing frustration as another squad was ambushed. The algorithms aren't working. Their attack patterns are random, unpredictable. By nightfall, the Kumiho forces had suffered unprecedented casualties and gained almost no ground. Nam ordered his troops to regroup at the landing zone. This makes no sense, he told his officers, as they gathered in the command ship. They shouldn't be able to resist us like this. They lack the technology, the unified command structure, everything. Admiral Tay stood on the deck of the massive Kumiho flagship, looking out at the stars through the wide viewing window. The ship hummed with quiet power as it moved through space. His dark uniform, decorated with symbols of his many victories, made him look even more serious than usual. "Another successful conquest, Admiral," said Commander Kim, walking up beside him with a data tablet. "The beings of the Orion system have surrendered completely. Their resources are now ours." Tay nodded, not even smiling. Victories no longer excited him after so many centuries. The Kumiho Alliance had conquered so many worlds that adding another felt like simply checking a box on a list. On the main screen, they watched footage from the day's battle. A human commander appeared frequently in the recordings, directing forces with hand signals and quick verbal commands. "Who is that?" Nam asked. "Records identify him as Commander Lee," an intelligence officer replied. "He appears to be coordinating the defense, but not through any technology we can detect, just talking to his troops." Nam studied the man's tactics with growing respect. "He's adapting to our strategies in real time." How? Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, another Kumiho force was having similar troubles. They had deployed their most advanced weapon, a neural disruptor field that should have knocked out every human in Tokyo, only to discover that many civilians were wearing crude but effective countermeasures. Simple devices that somehow blocked the disruptor frequencies. Lieutenant Du, who had been sent to investigate, reported back with astonishment. "Sir, they've constructed these devices in less than 48 hours since our arrival. And the most disturbing part, their children are helping. I've seen young humans, no more than 10 years old, modifying our salvaged technology in ways that should be impossible for them to understand." Nam couldn't believe what he was hearing. Children? How could they possibly comprehend our technology? "I don't know," Du admitted, "but they seem to have this curiosity. They take things apart, figure out how they work, and then improve. Them. I've never seen anything like it." Over the next 2 weeks, the pattern repeated across the globe. In London, Kumiho forces were trapped by simple but effective barricades that their sensors somehow failed to detect. In Brazil, human fighters used the dense jungle to ambush and overwhelm technologically superior forces. In Egypt, ancient tunnels beneath the desert became death traps for Kumiho squads. After the third major landing force was defeated, Admiral Tej called an emergency council aboard the command ship. "This situation is unprecedented," Tay said, looking at each of his commanders. "We have conquered 12,000 worlds. Not one has resisted successfully. Yet here we are, defeated by primitives using projectile weapons and crude electronics. Colonel," Nam spoke up, "Sir, there's something different about these humans. They don't fight like any species we've encountered before." "Explain," Tay demanded. "Most species we conquer fight logically. They follow patterns, strategies that make sense. When they see superior technology, they surrender to save lives." Nam pulled up battle footage on the main screen. "These humans, they don't surrender even when defeat seems certain. They keep fighting, and not just their soldiers, civilians, old people, Even their young are finding ways to resist us. Lieutenant. Du added, and they adapt with incredible speed. Technology that they've never seen before. They figure it out, counter it, sometimes even improve it within days. Admiral Tay stood silently for a long moment, looking at the battle reports. 5,000 Kumiho casualties across all landing zones. Equipment losses that would have been unthinkable against any other opponent, and still no sign that the human resistance was weakening. We could bring in the main fleet, one officer suggested. Orbital bombardment would end this quickly. Tay shook his head. No, Supreme Leader Park wants this planet intact, its resources and population preserved. He turned to face his commanders. We need to understand these humans, study them, learn why they can resist us when no one else could. As the meeting ended, Nam lingered behind. Admiral, there's something else you should know. What is it? Colonel, the human prisoners we've captured, most won't cooperate at all. And those who do tell us the same thing, that they will never stop fighting us, no matter how long it takes or how many of them die. Tay's expression darkened. Every species says that at first. Yes, sir, Nam agreed, but I believe these humans actually mean it. That night, as Tay looked down at the blue planet from his command ship, he faced an unthinkable situation, the first planetary resistance that hadn't immediately collapsed. Something about these humans was different, and for the first time in his long military career, Admiral Tay felt a tiny flicker of doubt about the outcome of a conquest. Researcher. Jin stood in the observation room, watching the human captives through one-way glass. Unlike the standard holding cells used throughout the Kumiho Empire, these had been specially modified after the first set of humans had somehow escaped from escape-proof containment. Jin made notes on her datapad as she observed. 6 months into the invasion, and still the Kumiho were no closer to understanding these strange beings. The High Command had assigned her one critical mission: figure out what made humans different from every other species they had conquered. Fascinating, she murmured, as she watched a group of human prisoners sharing their food rations with an injured member who couldn't reach his own. They prioritize the weak. Most species abandon their injured. Her assistant, researcher Min, looked up from his analysis. It makes no evolutionary sense. The strong should survive, the weak should perish. That's the natural order we've observed on 12,000 worlds, Jin continued watching. And yet they thrive because of it, not despite it. She pressed a button to zoom in on 2 prisoners talking in hushed tones. Look at those 2, they're planning something. Min checked their profiles. The older one is a school teacher, the younger one is a mechanic. Neither has military training. What could they possibly plan that would matter? Jin smiled slightly. That's exactly the mistake we keep making, underestimating them based on their classifications. She tapped her screen, bringing up footage from last week's failed containment. Remember how the last group escaped? An accountant figured out the pattern in our door security system. An accountant. She walked away from the window, toward the lab where her team worked. Inside, dozens of researchers analyzed everything they could gather about human biology, psychology, and social structures. Report, Jin ordered as she entered. A young researcher named Sue looked up from his workstation. We've completed the evolutionary history analysis. These human, their development path is unlike anything we've seen before. Jin moved to his screen. Show me. Sue pulled up a timeline of Earth's history. Most intelligent species evolve in relatively stable environments with consistent threats. But these humans... He pointed to key points in the timeline. Ice ages, massive geological upheavals, meteorite impacts, pandemic diseases, predators, of all kinds. Their entire evolutionary history is one disaster after another. And they survived all of it, Jin said, impressed despite herself. Not just survived, thrived because of it, Sue continued, echoing Jin's earlier observation. Each catastrophe wiped out large portions of their population, but those who remained were more adaptable, more creative in their problem-solving. Jin studied the data. So crisis doesn't weaken them, it strengthens them as a species. Exactly. And there's more. Sue switched to brain scan comparisons. Their neurological responses to threats are unique. When facing overwhelming odds, most species show decreased cognitive function as survival instincts take over. Humans show the opposite: increased creativity, enhanced cooperation, and accelerated learning. Jin remembered something she'd seen in the field reports. That would explain why they fight harder when they're losing. Yes, Sue nodded, and their social bonding is extraordinary. They form deep attachments not just to family units, but to abstract concepts like nations or causes. They'll die for ideas. Jin sighed heavily. This was all fascinating from a research perspective, but troubling for the invasion. She needed to report to Admiral Tay, and she didn't think he would, like what she had to tell him. Later that day, Jin stood before the Admiral in his private chamber aboard the command ship. She had spent hours organizing her findings into a clear presentation, knowing how much was riding on this information. "Speak freely, researcher," Tay said, his expression grave. The invasion delays were causing concern throughout the Kumiho High Command. Supreme Leader Park was growing impatient. Jin activated her presentation. "Admiral, our analysis of human psychology and biology reveals several key factors that make them uniquely resistant to our standard conquest methods." She showed him the evolutionary timeline first, explaining how Earth's constantly changing conditions had produced a species that thrived on adaptation. Then she moved to their social structures. Unlike most species which maintain rigid hierarchies, humans are tremendously flexible in their organization. When we cut off their leadership, new leaders emerge almost immediately. When we destroy their power structures, they create informal networks that accomplish the same goals. Tay frowned. That explains the communication problems we've had. No matter how many transmission centers we destroy, they still coordinate their resistance. Exactly, Jin continued, but perhaps most troubling is their psychological response to invasion. She showed brain scans of human subjects. These humans actually become more determined when the situation appears hopeless. It's completely irrational by our standards. Irrational? Explain, Tay demanded. In game theory terms, the logical choice when faced with overwhelming force is to surrender and preserve your life, Jin said. Every other species we've encountered understands this instinctively. Humans don't. They'll sacrifice themselves, even when there's no practical benefit. She showed footage from a recent battle where human defenders had deliberately drawn Kumiho forces into a trap, knowing they themselves would die in the process. They're irrational, Jin concluded. Their emotional responses make no strategic sense, yet somehow strengthen them. They call it courage or sacrifice, and they value it above almost everything else. Tay was silent for a long moment. So how do we defeat them? There must be a weakness. Jin hesitated. They do have weaknesses. They feel pain. They fear death, like any species. But they've somehow evolved to override those natural responses in ways we don't fully understand yet. At that moment, an urgent communication came through. It was Pilot Hyun, one of their best reconnaissance flyers. "Admiral," Hyun's voice was tense. "You need to see this footage immediately." The main screen activated, showing aerial views of what had once been a Kumiho forward base in the region called North America. The base had been captured by human forces 3 days earlier. "Look at what they're doing with our equipment," Hyun said. The footage zoomed in to show humans not just using Kumiho technology, but modifying it, combining it with their own crude devices in ways that shouldn't have been possible. "That's a neural cannon," Tai said in disbelief. "They've somehow reversed its polarity to penetrate our shields." "Yes, sir," Hyun confirmed, and they accomplished this in less than 72 hours after capturing the base. Our engineers estimated it would take a pre-spaceflight civilization at least 50 years to understand that technology, let alone modify it. Jin watched the footage with growing concern. Their adaptation rate is unprecedented. They're not just learning to use our technology, they're improving on it in some cases. Tay's face had gone dark with worry. "If they continue at this pace..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Everyone in the room understood the implications. If humans could master Kumiho technology this quickly, soon they wouldn't just be resisting. They might actually start winning. "There's something else you should see, Admiral," Jin said quietly. She activated another video feed, this one from inside a human military base they had been monitoring. On the screen, a human engineer was explaining something to a room full of others. Behind her on a large display was a detailed schematic of a Kumiho interstellar drive. "How did they get that?" Tay demanded. "Those plans are encrypted." "They didn't steal them," Jin replied. "According to our intelligence, they figured it out. By studying debris from one of our destroyed ships, they've begun building their own version." Tay stood up abruptly. "Supreme Leader Park needs to know about this immediately. These humans aren't just another primitive species. They're something we've never encountered before." He turned to Jin. "Continue your research. Find me something, anything we can use against them." As Jin left the Admiral's chamber, she couldn't help but feel a strange sense of admiration for these humans. In all her years studying alien species across the galaxy, she had never encountered beings with such remarkable resilience and creativity. For the first time in her career, she wondered if the Kumiho might have finally met their match. The massive underground facility beneath what was once Seoul hummed with activity. 3 years of war had transformed this former subway station into humanity's most advanced shipyard, where people once caught trains to work. Now engineers and scientists worked around the clock on humanity's greatest achievement, the HSS Defiance, Earth's first interstellar warship. Commander Lee walked through the bustling construction bay, nodding to workers who paused to salute him. At 62, Lee had been a military strategist before the invasion. Now he was humanity's most respected leader, the man who had coordinated Earth's seemingly impossible resistance against the Kumiho forces. "Commander, she's ready for your inspection," called Engineer Yoon, waving from the main platform. Lee smiled at the sight of Yoon. 4 years ago, she had been a quiet university professor, specializing in theoretical physics. Today, she led the team that had reverse-engineered Kumiho technology and created something entirely new. "Is it really time?" Lee asked, climbing the stairs to join her on the platform. "See for yourself," Yoon replied, pride evident in her voice. 3 years of blood, sweat, and more than a few tears. Together they walked toward the massive ship. Its hull gleamed with an odd metallic sheen, not quite like Earth metals, but not fully alien either. The design was unlike anything humans had built before, sleek like Kumiho vessels, but with distinctly human touches and innovations. "Beautiful," Lee whispered. "How many can it carry?" "Crew of 200, plus room for another 300 soldiers or refugees," Yoon replied. "And we've got 4 more nearly complete in the other facilities." Lee placed his hand on the hull, feeling a slight vibration. The power systems were already running. "And the weapons?" Yoon grinned. "That's the best part. We've improved on their designs. Our shield penetrators are 30% more effective than the original Kumiho weapons, and the drive system—" She paused, almost unable to contain her excitement. "It's faster. Their ships can make interstellar jumps of about 3 light-years. Ours can do 5. Lee looked at her in shock. "How is that possible?" "They've been using the same technology for centuries without innovation. We looked at their designs with fresh eyes." Yoon shrugged as if it was simple. "Turns out there were inefficiencies they never questioned." A young officer approached, handing Lee a tablet. "Sir, the final crew assignments for your approval." Lee scanned the list, recognizing names from battles across the globe, the best pilots, engineers, and soldiers humanity had to offer. Many had lost homes and families to the Kumiho invasion. All had volunteered for what might be a suicide mission. "Approve them all," Lee said, signing the tablet. "When can we launch?" 24 hours, Yoon replied. "The other ships will follow." "Within 2 weeks. The Kumiho won't expect this," Lee said quietly. "They still think we're just defending our planet." Yoon nodded. "That's their weakness. They can't imagine that we'd take the fight to them." In orbit above Earth, Admiral Tay received the alert from the sensor officer with disbelief. "Verify." "That again," he ordered. "It can't be right." "Signals confirmed, Admiral," the officer replied nervously. "Energy signatures matching our jump drive technology have been detected launching from Earth's surface." Tay rushed to the viewing portal in time to see a flash of light as something accelerated away from Earth at impossible speed. "Track it," he ordered. Where are they going? The navigation officer worked frantically at his console. Based on trajectory, they appear to be headed toward the Proxima system. Tay felt his blood run cold. Proxima was one of the first systems the Kumiho had conquered in this sector, a planet with a population of nearly 7 billion, now used as a major resource processing center. How? He whispered. How could they build interstellar ships in just 3 years? Behind him, researcher Jin spoke softly. I warned you, Admiral. Their adaptation rate is unprecedented. Tay turned to his communications officer. Contact Supreme Leader Park immediately. This is no longer just a planetary resistance. If they can build ships, if they can reach other systems— He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The HSS Defiance dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Proxima system. From the command chair, Commander Lee looked at the view screen with a mix of awe and determination. This was the first time humans had seen another star up close, and they had come not as explorers, but as liberators. Status report, Lee ordered. All systems functioning normally, the operations officer replied. We're detecting 3 Kumiho destroyer-class vessels in orbit around the 3rd planet. And our new stealth systems? Holding, sir, they don't see us yet. Lee nodded. Begin broadcasting on all frequencies. Use the translation protocols we developed from their communications. Throughout the ship, crew members held their breath as humanity made its first contact with another conquered world. People of Proxima, Lee's voice rang out, transmitted across the system. We are humans from the planet Earth. Like you, we have faced Kumiho invasion. Unlike all others before us, we have fought them to a standstill. We've come to tell you that resistance is possible. We've come to help you fight back. For several long minutes there was no response. Then suddenly, the communications array lit up with incoming signals. Sir, the communications officer said, voice shaking with emotion. They're responding. Thousands of responses from the planet's surface. On the main screen, images appeared. Aliens with blue-tinged skin and large eyes, speaking in their own language, which the ship's computers rapidly translated. Is it true? Can the Kumiho be defeated? We've been slaves for 7 generations. How can we help you? Lee smiled grimly at his crew. Send them the technical specifications for the shield disruptors. Show them how to disable the neural control implants. And tell them we'll draw off the orbital defenses to give them time to organize. As the Defiance moved toward the Kumiho ships, Weapons Officer Kang grinned. They've spotted us, sir. They're powering up weapons. Good, Lee replied. Let's show them what humans can do. In the Grand Chamber of the Kumiho High Command, Supreme Leader Park listened in stunned silence to reports flooding in from across the galaxy. For the first time in the Alliance's 1,000-year history, conquered worlds were rising in rebellion. The humans have spread to 7 of our systems now, Admiral Tay reported, his voice tight with tension. They're sharing weapons technology, communication protocols, battle tactics. Everywhere they go, rebellions erupt within days. Park, who had ruled the Kumiho for 5 centuries through biomechanical enhancements, felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. How many ships do they have now? He asked. At least 20 that we know of, Tay replied, and they're building more. They've established construction facilities on 3 different worlds. Park stood from his throne, a smooth motion despite his ancient age. This ends now. Prepare my personal vessel. Tay looked shocked. Supreme Leader, you can't possibly be considering— I am going to Earth, Park interrupted. Not with an invasion fleet, but with a diplomatic delegation. The chamber erupted in murmurs of disbelief. Park had never personally intervened in a conquest. He had never needed to. Supreme Leader, Tay said carefully, these humans cannot be trusted. They're unpredictable, emotional. They're the first species in 1,000 years to successfully resist us, Park cut him off, and the first ever to take the fight beyond their own world. They've accomplished in 3 years what no other species has done in a millennium. He looked around at his commanders. We have 2 choices: continue a war that could spread rebellion across our entire empire, or recognize these humans as a force worthy of our respect. 1 month later, Admiral Tay stood beside Commander Lee in Earth's newly constructed Peace Hall, a vast dome built specifically for this historic meeting. Around them, representatives from both Earth and the Kumiho Alliance watched as Supreme Leader Park entered. The ancient leader moved with surprising grace toward the central table, where Earth's United Council waited. For the first time in his long military career, Tay understood what it meant to recognize an enemy as an equal. As negotiations began, Tay leaned slightly toward Lee. "Your people have accomplished something remarkable," he said quietly. "No world has ever forced the Alliance to negotiate." Lee nodded, his expression solemn but proud. "We didn't want war. We still don't. But we will never accept subjugation. Not for ourselves, and not for any other world." Tay looked around the Grand Hall, at humans working alongside Kumiho, at the maps showing liberated systems, at the future taking shape through words rather than weapons. This small blue planet had accomplished what thousands of others could not. They had stood strong when all others fell, and in doing so they had changed the galaxy forever.